How you doing, Speaker Gingrich and Calista? This is Joe from New York, and I was just wondering what you thought the Puritans would think of America today.
Well, they would clearly think that it had drifted too far from God's wishes and God's descriptions, and I think, but I think frankly so would George Washington. I think even Abraham Lincoln, who gave the most religious speech by an American president, his second inaugural in 703 words, references God 14 times and quotes the Bible twice. And I think all of them would have said to us that there are profound things about being free that start with trying to understand what your Creator would have you do rather than to impose your own ego.
Thank you very much. And my second question is, America has so many diverse faiths. Do you think it's possible for religion to be used as a guide for public policy?
Sure. You know, with religious liberty comes the need for religious tolerance. We see this today, and we saw it in early America. Initially, we had the Church of England in Virginia. Then we see the Puritans in Massachusetts, the Quakers in Pennsylvania, who were seen as religious radicals for the time. We also look at the Catholics in Maryland and Philadelphia, as well as the first Jewish community in Rhode Island. And with religious liberty comes the need for religious tolerance.
Hello, Newt and Calista. This is Matthew from Nashville, Tennessee. I was just wondering why you decided to do a sequel, and were you surprised by anything that you learned?
Well, Rediscovering God in America is based on Newt's book, and it's both a book and a documentary, and we had such a positive response to it. People asked us to do more about the role of God in America. So we have done Rediscovering God in America 2, Our Heritage. And this film explores the role of religion in early America, from Jamestown through the American Revolution to the end of the Civil War in 1865. This film tells the story of the great faith that sustained and motivated our nation's leaders and our nation's belief in religious freedom. You always learn something, of course, when you do a movie, and one of the interesting historical facts that Newt and I learned occurred when we were at Cape Henry. And Cape Henry is where the first English settlers landed in Virginia. And before they proceeded on to Jamestown, they erected a cross at Cape Henry in thanks to God for a safe passage across the Atlantic.
You know, I didn't realize, for example, that in Jamestown, which we don't normally think of as the more religious colony compared to, say, Massachusetts with the Puritans and the Pilgrims, but in Jamestown, they went to church 14 times a week. And there was a great deal of pretty strict religious belief in the early colonies in a way that I found personally, even though I've taught history, I found surprising as we did the research for this movie.
Thanks. Now my follow-up question is, what do you think the Supreme Court today would think about the Puritans' display of religion?
Well, it's clear, this is part of why we wrote the book and have now made 2 movies about rediscovering God. It's clear that our modern courts are a repudiation of all of American history. Historically, none of the founding fathers would have thought it reasonable to drive the cross out of public life. As Calista pointed out, the very first thing that the English-speaking colonists did in Virginia was erect a cross, and the whole idea that somehow America would have a government which was anti-religious as opposed to freedom of religion, I think would have struck all of the founding fathers as totally destructive, because all of them believed that freedom in large part was based on our rights coming from our Creator.
That's right, and it is impossible to understand the history of our nation today without recognizing the profound role that God has had on America. And this heritage is really the foundation of our nation that has endured for over 200 years.